Hello everyone and welcome! So in this video I'm going to show you how I made this lovely high summer dress. It is quite fitted, but it does not have a closure, no zipper, no buttons. And the secret is the back, because you see here, the back inner panel of this princess line dress is shirred, so it is sewn with an elastic thread. And this snatches it in when I'm wearing it. So, the pattern for this dress is available on my website for free, and I will show you how you can get the pattern right now. You can either follow the link below the video or you go to dressdeveloper.com, patterns, and here we have a dress beginner, create pattern. Then you can select a size or you can upload a measure set with your very own measurements. And then you can add additional measurements. So the sleeve length, I go for the short length. And the width addition to the hem is basically the amount of flare on all these panels get together. So each of the princess line panels can get additional flare at the hem. And if you take all these together, then you get this measurement here. So I'm going for 200 centimeters. I want a really, really swooshy dress. So these 200 are not the circumference overall, because this gets added to the base circumference. And here the length of the dress, I go for 120 centimeters. Next, the fit category. This determines the amount of ease in the pattern. Default is 5, and you see here on the left the amount of ease this gives you. But because we have this elasticated panel in the back, you could probably go with less ease as you would usually do. Now, seam allowance. I want 1.5 centimeters seam allowance added, and paper format A4 is fine. When I now create the pattern, I get 2 links. We show you the second link first. Here you have a cover with all your informations about your measurements and the pattern pieces. And here you have a printing layout, so you know how you need to assemble your pieces. And the first link, I need to do this again. The first link is your pattern, which is all ready for printing. So I have everything cut out. That makes 6 dress panels, 2 sleeves, 4 pockets. I had not enough fabric to cut out the hem facing pieces, so no problem, I will do it with some bias tape. And I will also use a strip of bias tape to face the neckline. And I have already done some preparation steps. So you see I have gone and run the center edges of my dress panels through the serger. If you don't have a serger, you can simply use a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. And I have already done a double turned hem, so just folded the fabric under twice and then top stitched on the 2 center panels. So this is the center back, and for now the other panels are not interesting because the center back panel is very wide. So my back is not as wide and it's only the center, so I need to gather this up, bring this together, So I have a plan A and I have a plan B. My plan A would be to do shirring, which I have never done before. So if this does not work out, I will try and get the same effect with some strips of elastic, which I hopefully would, sew here in lines onto the fabric. But plan A was shirring, and for shirring you need wait, well, we're off to a good start. I can't even unwrap it. Okay, so you need this type of thread. This is an elastic sewing thread, very stretchy, and this comes into the bobbin. So this is the thread for under the seam, under the fabric, and I will sew with a regular cotton thread in the needle. But in the bobbin I will use this elastic, and I will sew straight lines here, and hopefully everything will get nicely gathered up. But to do so, I think I should draw in some guidelines. So here's the pattern piece. Let me line this up. And you see that there is a line here at the waist, and the shirring should go down to the waist. So let me mark this. And on the other side, mark this too. So this is the last line I will stitch. This is the right side of the fabric. It does not matter because my fabric does look exactly the same from both sides, but I have decided which is the right side by doing the double turned hem. So, and I want the first line of stitching be about here. So, which leaves, let me measure this. About 38 centimeters, which I need to cover. So I think 3 centimeters is quite a good amount of distance. So I'm just going to do a little bit more of 3 centimeters for each row. And this should give me a grid. So I'm just drawing this on. Yes, I know, the local soccer club did win. I don't know if you hear the honking. Neighborhood is so happy right now. I must admit I don't care. Okay. Oh my gosh. Now they're singing. Oh boy. I must have won a really complicated match. So, now I have my grid. But What I now need is to wind my bobbin. So let me get a bobbin and a pair of scissors. Let me get this to the side. Now I need to wind my bobbin. And I need to do this by hand. So far I do know. Yes, I have watched a couple of tutorials, so I'm an expert. So. And while I'm winding this, I am supposed to create a bit of tension. Please don't roll to the floor. So I am pulling on the thread just a little bit. Maybe I should not twist this. This gets tangled up. Non-tutorial told me what to do when it gets tangled up. Yes, this is the first time for me. And I'm doing it on camera. Yes, I will do some test runs. It might be that I need to adjust some tension on my machine. Very possible. I wonder how many bobbins I need to wind for this. Definitely more than one. There's 20 meters on the spool. I don't think I got many meters on the bobbin here. Okay. I think I need to call it a day. So, I am probably not supposed to let it go. So, I somehow need to transfer this to my sewing machine and, well, in theory, just thread in like usual. And then I will do some test runs. And then if I'm satisfied, I will come back and sew my little grid here on the back. Yeah, hopefully this will work. If not, plan B. Oh my god, it worked! Like a charm, first try. Great! This is exactly how I imagine it to be. Great! I think we can work with this. So let me explain in more detail. I have threaded the machine completely like normal, just with the elastic thread in the bobbin. When I have lengthened the stitch length a tiny bit, I'm sewing with a 3.5 millimeters stitch length, and I simply sew with a straight stitch. I am making sure that I backstitch at the beginning and the end of each row, and then I leave some tail and snip the thread. The thread ends then gets woven between the loops of a serger seam, and I really do hope that this will be enough to keep the thread from coming undone again. If you have a better method, let me know down in the comments. I'm glad to hear about this. Well, this worked great. I didn't expect it to work this well. So you see here, this is the result I was going for. Nice and stretchy and gathered. My sewing machine did a great job, though it squeaked terrible for the whole process. So I'm sure a sewing machine is glad I'm done. So what is the right side? This is the right side. So now I'm going to join the other panels. So I have a front and a back piece. So these are the two back panels, the outer back panels. Come on. Yes. They love each other. So, and I will simply join these together. There are several notches on the pattern, which indicates which parts goes together. Simply clip these. Now here on the top, the outer panel is higher than the inner panel. That is fine. So we have a squared neckline, more or less squared. So I will simply sew these together with a simple running stitch, simple straight running stitch on my sewing machine. Oh, I like the look of this. Look, it's so great. I'm so happy. The other panel. I will do the same for the front panels. So again, but we have one front and one back piece. Oh yes, I really like how this look. So I can now join the shoulder seams. I'm simply placing the two pieces, right sides facing each other, and pin the shoulder. Like this, and I will sew these with a regular straight stitch. All right, so the front and the back neck hole are already finished, but here the shoulder neck hole is still open. So it's serged, but this is not pretty. So I want to add a piece of bias tape to this. So I open this up. And I want to sew it. Wait. Let me fold this in. Now I will sew it here at the edge. All along the neckline. Here at the shoulder I press the seam allowance open. So, and I will end here. Again, I fold the edge under. So, and when I sew this in place, I will top stitch, no, not top stitch, under stitch it. So that means that I will sew the seam allowance to the binding, to my bias tape here. So basically here at the edge. And then it will fold to the inside pretty nicely. Then I will press it and sew it down from the other side with a couple of hand stitches, so it's not visible from the outside. Here at the shoulder forms, depending on your shoulder slope, this forms a little point here. So you can, if you want to, go ahead and cut this edge a bit so it is not as pointy. That's totally fine. And this will then hopefully look more like this. Right. And then I will repeat this on the other side too, and then the neckline is done. Though when I'm looking here at the shirring, I think I will do another line of shirring too, more up here to the edge, because I don't really like it that it moves open like this. So I think I will do this too. I am now sewing down the bias tape facing by hand. So here's the facing, fold it to the inside, here's the seam from the understitching. And I'm now trying only to catch 1 or 2 threads from the outer fabric before I stitch into the facing. And since this fabric is a bit crinkly in itself, even the not shirred parts, I don't think it will be noticeable from the outside. Right? Right. Now the neckline is finished, front, back and the sides. I can set in the sleeves. So I just grab one of my sleeves. Here's the arm side. And we have here a double notch for the back, single notch for the front and the shoulder seam. And I find these notches on my sleeve pattern as well. Double notch, one notch for the shoulder here, and another single notch for the front. And you can see I have sewn 2 rows of gathering stitches here. So these are simply very long stitches, so basting stitches basically. And I will now separate the top from the bottom thread. No, this is top, this is bottom. Yeah. And I will now pull on the top threads to gather the sleeve up. If you're having trouble with this, you can alternatively take a length of embroidery floss or crochet thread and sew it on with a zigzag stitch. So the thicker thread, the embroidery floss, gets encased by the zigzag stitches. And this is practically foolproof to gather up. You need to be careful that you don't stitch into the embroidery floss. But otherwise, the gathering is very smooth. So I think that's more than enough. Where is my top notch? Here is my top notch. So here is my shoulder seam. Press the seams open and then I line up. Where is it? Just had it. Here. Line up the notch and the shoulder seam. Clip. And the same for the single notch. We don't gather with the sleeve here at the underarm seam. This would feel really weird if we would do so. So, notch for the back and the end. So, and now I am just trying to distribute my gathers evenly, so I fill up the rest of the arm side. If you're not happy with my gathered sleeve, you do know, hopefully, maybe not, that I have a sleeve pattern kit where you can create different sleeves for every arm side. I will link the video below. And so if you don't like this puffy sleeve, you can go ahead and create a very different one for this pattern. So now I need to sew the sleeve in place, and I will do so with my sewing machine and a simple straight stitch first. I will simply sew it on, and then I will serge this edge. Again, if you don't have a serger, cut the seam allowance back a bit and then zigzag it. Or you can bind it with bias tape if you want to. This would be a totally valid form of finishing, and it's actually very sturdy. it's coming together. Now, while at the serger, I have finished here the long side edges, and now I'm going to sew these together. I'm doing this in 2 steps. So I finish with the serger, but I sew them together with my sewing machine, because then I have the option to press the seam open and to reduce bulk. Also, it's always a stronger seam if you don't do anything with the serger directly. So for woven fabrics, when the seam does not need to be stretchy, I prefer the sewing machine for the construction, and I use the serger only for the finishing. So I'm just lining up the sides here, but as you maybe remember, my pattern comes with pockets, so I cannot simply sew these side seams together. I need to leave space for my pockets. So here are my pockets. This is a pair of pockets already serged and sewn together. But please note that I have left open the seam allowance here at the opening. So I am able to fold the seam allowance open like this. So we will leave an opening here in the side seam, and then the pocket gets attached basically like this. So where will I put the opening? Yes, words are hard sometimes. So about here is the waist. So I like to put my pockets in about a hand's width below the waist. So I'm adding some red clips where I need to start and stop for the opening. And I will transfer this marking to the other side, so the pockets sit on the same height. And then I will go to the sewing machine and this is big. Then I will go to the sewing machine and sew it together, backstitch at the opening, and leave it be until I reach the starting point again. So, but you don't need to watch me pin the second seam. Now we can install the pockets. I have here, no, here. I have here my opening, and I will simply put it over. So I basically join up the openings from the pocket and the dress. Pin the seam allowance together. So one side of the seam allowance of the dress gets pinned to one side of the seam allowance of the pocket, and then the other side too. And then I will switch to my zipper foot so that I can get closer to the seam here. And I will fold the dress out of the way, so I have only the seam allowance here. Then I stitch here, and then I flip the whole thing, and then I stitch here, seam allowance of the pockets to the seam allowance of the dress. And then I have functional pockets, and the only thing we need to do then is to hem. Now I have hemmed the sleeves with a simple double turned hem. So I have folded inside the seam allowance and then an additional 2 centimeters and then stitched that down. But I have left a little gap here below the arm, and I will now thread some elastic through this. So I have measured the elastic quite loosely around my arm. I need a safety pin. Why don't I have a safety pin? Okay, let's take this one. Yeah, safety pin. So I will put the safety pin on one end of the elastic. Where's my sleeve? Here's my sleeve. And then I will use the safety pin to thread through the elastic. So make sure that this end stays outside of the channel, because otherwise you need to do this again. Simply all around. Well, you don't need to do this step, of course. Maybe you like a flowy sleeve. It's totally up to you. I could imagine that a butterfly sleeve would look very pretty to this pattern. There is one in my sleeve pattern kit, you know. So now the tricky part, I need to maneuver through the seam allowance here. Okay. Almost there. There we are. So, pull this out, and now I'm going to sew these two ends together. Maybe I just pin it together temporarily so that it doesn't escape while I go to the sewing machine. So make sure that you don't twist your elastic. And then I would like to simply overlap the elastic, and then I make a couple of stitches, and then I pull on the elastic so it does vanish in the opening, and then I go ahead and stitch this little opening close with a couple of stitches, and then I have a lovely puffy sleeve, hopefully. Almost done. All what's left now is the hem of the skirt. And I will do this almost identically. That word does not exist. Almost identical to the side neckline. So I will sew on some bias tape. The pattern comes with facing pieces. I did not have enough fabric for the facing pieces. Bias tape is absolutely fine. So I will sew the bias tape onto the right side of the fabric, just here all around. Then I will understitch it. So stitch here, so the seam allowance gets sewn to the facing, which means the bias tape. And then I will press it to the inside, and I think I'm lazy. I will just top stitch it. It's just the skirt hem. I don't feel like hemming about 3.5 meter skirt length by hand today, so top stitching it is. So at the start and the ending, I will leave a little flap here open. So wait, let me grab a scrap so I can demonstrate this. So I will leave about 5 centimeters or more open, so then I can fold it out. And when I reach from the other side, I'll leave a couple of centimeters overlapping too, so I can then stitch these together and snip it and press the seam allowance open, and this way you should get an almost invisible joint here, so no bulk at one edge. Okay, this is hard to see. Let me try to explain. Here I am trying to line up the two pieces of bias tape I have left loose on the beginning and the end of a seam. I kind of tried to find the center and mark this point with some creases in the fabric, so I know where I need to sew these two pieces together. I know they should better be sewn together in a 45-degree angle, but I have no idea how to do this. Maybe you could explain it to me. And this technique works fine for me. So I am here just trying to line these up, finding the creases I made in the fabric, and then stitch these together. The seam allowance is folded open for the step. I will later fold it in again. Now I can cut back the seam allowance and press it open, and then fold back the upper seam allowance, so I can now finish sewing this edge. So we are done, and I think I'm in love. This dress is so amazing. It feels like nothing, light as a feather, and it's so swooshy and so comfortably. So you don't feel anything from the shirring. The only thing I feel against my body is the elastic here at the arm, but it's fine. I don't feel uncomfortable at all. And I think this dress will be so great in high summer, which will not be for the next weeks yet. So I fear this dress will have some time in the closet before it, but the time will come, I'm sure. And yeah, I will do some minor tweakings on the pattern before it goes live. So I think the sleeves could be a smidge longer, though I wouldn't have had the fabric to cut them longer anyway. So this length is fine. I just will add a little bit to it, especially for the longer versions. You want some nice bunching on the wrist, right? And there is a teeny tiny bit of gaping here in the neck hole. For one, I think I should probably be gone with a smaller fit category, so I don't need that much ease with the elastic panel. But I think a little bit of contouring here in the neckline will do this pattern good. So we don't want to feel insecure with our neckline, do we? And that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and it was of some help. If you have any questions, just let me know down in the comments and I'm glad to help. And I hope I will see you soon in my next video. Bye bye!